Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I thought it'd be fun to compare two, well, you could say they're Ultra Magnums or Super Magnums. We're going to compare the 28 Nosler to the 300 Remington Ultra Magnum. We're going to find out which one is actually the flatter shooter. I think you'll be surprised by the results. I have three criteria for this video. I want to talk about the rifles we'll be using. I'm specifically just going to be using hunting rifles with 26-inch barrels. Yes, you can get a custom rifle with a 28 or 30-inch barrel, and the velocities are going to increase quite a bit. So we're just going to go with hunting rifles. Okay, I'm going to be using velocity and data from the Nosler and Hornady reloading manuals, mostly the Nosler books. Lastly, which one's flatter? We're just doing it out to 1,000 yards. That's kind of the standard for long distance shooting, and so that's just the number I picked. Obviously, the results could vary depending on distance as well, which one is flatter. The question comes, why did I pick the 28 Nosler to go up against the 300 Remington Ultra Magnum? Well, I think these cartridges are more closely related than you would think. Both of them are loosely based off the 404 Jeffrey case. And they actually have almost the same identical case dimensions, with the exception to the length and obviously the neck size. Basically are identical until you get up to the length and the neck. And so really you could make an argument that the 28 Nosler's parent case is really the 300 Remington Ultra Mag, which that's what I kind of believe. Lastly, before I show you the numbers, I kind of want to hear from you. Which one, instinctively, which one do you think is the flatter shooter out to 1,000 yards? I'm going to make some cases for both. A lot would consider that the RUM, 300 RUM, is too overbore, and that the 28 Nosler just gets more velocity with less powder. It's a bit more efficient, which is ironic because the 28 Nosler is not really that efficient, but that just shows you that the 300 RUM is pretty overbore. Another point for the 28 Nosler is that with 7mm bullets, you're really getting the sweet spot with bullet weight and velocity and BC. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can shoot a 180 grain bullet out of a 7mm that has a very high BC, but it's still not really heavy where your velocities are really going to slow down. Compared to, say, 30 caliber, if you want the same high BC bullets as the 7mm, you're going to have to go up to like 225, 230, 240, 250 grain bullets. And naturally, they're just going to slow down because they're bigger bullets. And so a lot will argue the 28 Nosler is going to be flatter just because for that instance. Now, with all of that being said about the 28 Nosler, there is a saying, there is no replacement for displacement. So what does that mean? Well, as you can see, the 30 Nosler has quite a bit more case capacity. The 7mm bullet I want to use in this comparison with the 28 Nosler is the 180 grain ELD match. Check out that G1BC of 0.796. Absolutely insane. And in the Hornady book, Hornady claims you can get 3,150 feet per second. Let me show you what kind of velocities you can get in the Nosler book with the 28 Nosler. The numbers for Hornady are somewhat conservative. Numbers from the Nosler book, like here, you could say sometimes they're a bit more than what you probably would get. So I really just want to do a number right in between these. So with case capacity, this is what I want to show you real quick. With a 175, 180 grainish bullet, you're getting about 90 grains of water capacity in the 28 Nosler. Remember that number. Then with a 175 grain bullet, yes, we're shooting a 180, but you're getting around 3,200 feet per second. And then with the 185 grain from Nosler, you're getting right at 3,150. And if you remember, the Hornady was 3150 with a 180 grain. So I'm going to put the number right in between. I think you could get 3175. Onto the 300 Remington Ultra Magnum. And as I said near the beginning, that if we're trying to match bullets with the same BC from 30 caliber to 7mm, the 30 caliber, at least with the RUM, it's just going to be slower. So I'm not actually going to try to match BCs. I'm actually going to use a bit of a smaller bullet. Let me show you. We're going to go down to the 168 grain. And the bullet I'm going to use is the Accubon long range with a very respectable BC of 0.525. Now, the 180 grain ELDM and the 7mm absolutely stomps this one as far as BC goes. But, as I said, there's no replacement for displacement. Let me show you. The velocities you can get out of this almost hit 3,500 feet per second. Sorry, I forgot to show you the case capacity with the 168 grain in the 300 RUM. It's 105 grain water capacity, so 15 more grains than the 28 Nosler. Finally, we're looking at the numbers. The 28 Nosler with that 180 grain ELDM with an incredible BC of 0.796. And again, the velocity is going to be 3,175 feet per second. Energy, yeah, I'm not doing this for hunting purposes, but it's still fun to see 4,000 foot-pounds of energy. And let's just, speaking of hunting, talk about some ethical hunting distances out to 400 yards. The bullet's going almost 2,700 feet per second, 2,903 foot-pounds of energy, and only 19.28 inches of drop. This thing is flat. Okay. And let's just keep it going. Bam, 1,000 yards. The bullet's going 2,061 feet per second, almost 1,700 foot-pounds. Wow. Only 200.85 inches of drop. This makes the 28 Nosler easily one of the flattest cartridges in the world. With the 300 RUM, using the 168 grain Accubon long range, BC of 0.525, again, not too bad. Muzzle velocity of 3,480 feet per second, 4,518 foot-pounds of energy. So 500 more foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Again, we're not really worried about energy and what this does for hunting. This is just what's the flattest cartridge. Now, to hunting distances, it's going 2,723 feet per second, so just a little bit quicker. And the energy is 2,766 foot-pounds. But check out the drop, 16.68 inches, so over 3 inches less of drop at 400. Now, will it sustain it out to 1,000 yards? Let's see. At 1,000 yards, your bullet is still going almost 1,800 feet per second. Energy is nowhere close because it's not near high BC of a bullet, but because of how much faster it's going, it barely beats out the 28 Nosler in drop, like within an inch. 199.7 inches of drop at 1,000 yards. You really could make an argument they're basically identical. I did do a lot of number crunching with bigger bullets and lighter bullets, and the ones I just showed you technically aren't the flattest. I was just showing bullets that a lot of people would be using in these cartridges. Let me show you some of the flatter ones. We've got in the 28 Nosler, the 150 grain ELDX. When you have a muzzle velocity of 3,425 feet per second, your drop at 1,000, 196.5 inches. So it's even flatter than the 168 grain Accubon long range out of the 300 RUM. But not so fast. The 300 RUM, when you hand load it with a 150 grain E-tip bullet, which is a monolithic bullet, you can get some crazy velocities with this one, going 3,650 feet per second. That makes your drop only 192.77 inches. But I'm not done. With the 28 Nosler, you could load it with a 120 grain ballistic tip bullet, which has a very good BC for how small this bullet is. I'm not sure I believe Nosler on this one, but let's just say I do. A muzzle velocity of 3,800 feet per second, and your drop barely beats out the 300 RUM at 192.01. So it really depends on what bullets it's loaded up with, which one is technically a hair faster or flatter, I mean. But really you could say these are basically identical.